being a YouTuber. That was never being a podcaster. Like that was never a dream or goal of mine at all. It was something that I literally started it because I was really depressed and I couldn't talk to people anymore because I had completely shut down.
Let's hear what you think. Why did it blow up?
Female for sure helps. That was a void that desperately needed to be filled. But
Right.
there was nobody who was doing it in what I would call more of a traditional YouTuber fashion.
Okay.
And I was doing that, and I started doing that because I watched other people do it, and it was always dudes. But I do all of the things that people don't do because they think it's not worth it or they think it's not going to happen. So there's so many interviews that I've landed, and people are like, "How did you get that? It must be because you're a paid asset." And I'm like, I sent an email.
Obviously, the job transition was one, and then a profound loss in somebody close to you that had committed suicide. That's the type of loss that I feel like stops most people in their tracks. Jasmin, thank you so much for joining us on Careers Under Construction.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I wanted to obviously talk about some politics things today, but more importantly, I want to get into your career. It's very inspiring, especially like a small town girl. You grew up in rural Manitoba. What inspired you to pursue a career in media, and what were some of the defining moments early on?
Oh, goodness. It's so funny. I actually initially, when I was younger, I had really wanted to go to school to become either a nurse or a teacher. Those were my two things. And I had started doing everything to become a nurse already. I was like 16. And so there were certain classes and stuff that you could take as extras in the high school that I went to that I was taking just to make sure I had a little bit under my belt and could handle university. And I had already been looking at like the U of M and their programs that they have for nursing and all those things, like nursing colleges and whatnot. And then I was 16 years old. It was a cold winter night, and the Santa Claus Day parade was in town. And I saw a parade float for a radio station, and I just thought right then and there, I was like, I want to work in radio. That's what I want to do. I want to work in media. I don't know why. I'm not popular or anything like that. I don't even have confidence in myself, but this is what I need to do. And immediately from that moment on, I just decided that I wanted to work in media really bad. Again, didn't know why, but I did. And I had gone back to school as once we were like back from the weekend and whatever. And I had told some of my teachers that I really wanted to work in radio. And my teachers actually ended up setting up like student internships for me for the following year. So then when I was 17, I did student internships with Breakfast Television as well as a few different radio stations. And voila, I ended up. So essentially, I've been in the industry since I was 17 years old, which
Amazing.
is crazy.
Amazing. Yeah, like the first time I heard of you or recognized you was on Energy 106. How did you get to that point?
Well, media is like, I would argue that most talents, once you're on air, depending on who you are and what the station is, but a lot of talents, you have like maybe a 3 to 5 year window before they maybe do like a refresher of some sort. Obviously in Winnipeg, though, there's a lot of mainstays who have been on air forever. But so I was in one of those phases where I was doing a midday show at the time, and, you know, I was wanting to look up, but what had happened there is that I got poached. So the program director from there had reached out to me and said like, hey, we have a potential opening. Are you interested? We went for lunch. I signed an NDA and away we went. And then I ended up getting a job there. But I had been on air at that point in time for, I'd say, at least 3 years or so, working at Rogers Media. So I did that first and then was poached to go do mornings at Energy from there.
Amazing. And how have you found the transition going from, you know, on-air media working for another brand to independent working for yourself?
Absolutely life-changing, in the best possible way, and so chaotic and insane, very stressful, but also just like such a cool and empowering journey. I don't like everything about my life today, and obviously there's so many little steps that led me to be able to do what I've done, but I would have never in a million years imagined this happening the way that it did. It was never, this right now was never a dream of mine. It really was something that just kind of happened. And it's the greatest honor of my life. Like, it's the coolest thing in the world.
So a couple years ago, and you've talked about this publicly before, but you went through a couple losses. Obviously, the job transition
Mhm.
was one, then a profound loss and somebody close to you that had committed suicide. That's the type of loss that I feel like stops most people in their tracks.
Mhm.
But you turned that into something very purposeful and passionate and a project out of it. Can you tell me about the You Got This clothing line?
Yeah, that was something really special. You got this. So it was my late boyfriend who had passed away, and him and we were not together in a relationship at the time. We had both kind of agreed to separate a little bit because that was like the one thing that we had never tried, and he was still not feeling very well. And then that was definitely more of me, and I regret that a lot some days, and then other days I recognize obviously I can't hold myself responsible for that. But him and I, that was something we said to each other for years was you got this. That was always what we'd say if there was ever a hard moment. You got this. You got this.
Mm.
So much so that actually a few months before he died, I had actually got that tattooed on my wrist because it was just this saying that I always had in my head, no matter how tough times were. It's like you got this. You're gonna get through it, no matter what. Um, and so after he had passed away, obviously that was I don't know. My brain works like that though. I don't really know what like relaxing is. Like people will say to me, "Oh, you should just take a break." I'm like, "What is that?" Um, and as soon as that all happened, it was so life altering, and I just like if I didn't have anything to do, I would be so much worse off than if I have something to do and focus on. So my focuses at that time were how what can I do? What can I do in memory of him to honor him, as well as to help people not feel. I think that's the biggest thing too, is just that there's so many people who feel alone, and it is a silent battle. I think especially for men, it's a silent battle.
It was depression you're referring to?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I mean, even for men though, like suicide is the second leading cause of death in Canada for men under 30,
Mm.
and those numbers are rising every single year. So,
Why do you think that is?
there's a lot of reasons about that I
Yeah.
talk about very frequently on my career now, which I'm
Uh-huh.
sure we'll get into in a moment. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I really wanted to do something visual, something to make people feel heard and seen. And so I partnered with a friend of mine who owns Hey Matt and Co. They're in like St. Vital Mall now, I believe. And she immediately, and she's also had a lot of suffering and tragedy in her life too. And immediately she was game. And I ended up getting a whole bunch of my last boyfriend's, like some of his coworkers and some of his friends together to be there for the photo shoot. Obviously ran everything past his mom first, and we decided to do that. I think in about it was a month, and we had raised just over $6,000 for the Canadian Association for Suicide Prevention.
Wow.
So that was really special.
Yeah. No doubt. Is that the period of your life or the season of your life where you were also working on finding your faith as well? Because you had talked about that before as
Hmm.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say like I've always been religious, hated it in my youth, as most people do, and then I would say around that at that period of time, which is so interesting how this played out, but because a lot of people, when you experience something really traumatic, that's the first thing that'll make you turn away. Why me? Why did this happen? If God is so good, why did this happen? You
Mm.
know, and I shouldn't say for whatever reason. There were very specific reasons that I just I don't that made me so much more devout in my faith than anything, which is very confusing because it's like you just went through hell and back. What do you mean? How on earth did that make you stronger in your faith? But it really did. It
Hmm.
really did. There are a lot of things that I came to realize and understand then, and things that I experienced that I remember moments. I remember moments like, you know how when you pray and you ask for things. I remember moments where there would be something that I would ask for as a sign of some sort, and it would be the most specific thing in the world. And I just kind of did it out of faith, like, okay, if it's real, show me this, you know?
Mm.
And there would be instances where I would be crying in my car. And I remember just crying my eyes out and just saying, like, how can I be sad when it's real? And I know you're okay. Like, there's no way that I can be sad, and even that's conflicting too. Obviously, there's not a lot in the Bible about suicide in particular, but I I also believe that, as the Bible says, every single individual, you have your chance before you go where you're meant to be at the end of this life, where you get to meet our Lord and Savior, and you get to go through every moment of your life, and you have an opportunity to do all of that. And I really do believe that, even in terrible tragedies, and even in things where, you're taking your life, I have such a hard time believing that the Almighty would ever say no to somebody who has suffered so much, who has been so plagued by evil, and who has done everything in their power to
Mm.
not feel how they felt. And evil latches itself onto you when you're most vulnerable, and when it can take something from you, and that's how so much sadness and pain spreads, and claims even more victims. And it's impossible for me to believe that the manner of death is the most important factor of your time here on earth. I really don't believe that at all.
Yeah, I agree. I've got a sponsor, a friend that's very faithful, and one of the things he always says is like, you got to pray, uh, stay true to your higher power, your God,
Hmm.
because evil's out in the parking lot doing push-ups waiting for you,
Hmm.
that type of thing. But I also agree with the fact that I feel like when a lot of people, get into a sticky situation or hit their rock bottom, something like that, that is a lot of times when they do find faith or they do find a higher power, and that is able to help them get out of that situation as well.
Hmm.
You
Yeah,
know?
I completely agree with that. I don't know, it's so interesting. I don't make my faith a focal point per se, though I do drip it in quite frequently in subtle little ways that many might not realize. I actually even remember I spoke at the conservative convention, and there was a friend of mine, his girlfriend, texted me, and she's like, "Did you just invoke the Bible?" And I was like, "Sure did." Like, I don't think anybody caught that, but I sure did. So there's definitely little ways that I make it a part of things.
For sure. And I think the other thing about faith is, for people is you start believing in it, or you start to become a little bit more religious or
Mhm,
more to your faith when you're ready for it.
mhm, of
It
course.
can't be forced on somebody. In fact, if it is, it typically falls on deaf ears. At
Mhm,
least in my experience when I was younger. You mentioned like you were pretty far away from faith when you were younger.
mhm,
For me, I was the same way. I wasn't ready for it. Then there's like, sometimes in life there's an event that happens, or, a rock bottom. And then you find out that your rock bottom has a basement, and you fall to another rock bottom. And then, that's typically when it comes out and it shines and it's able to elevate your life.
mhm.
You also talked about something else earlier, like you got the opportunity to speak at the conservative convention. I want to ask you, like, how did you get into that as a keynote speaker?
Just like the funniest story ever, because I am still so shocked that that happened at all. Um, Contrary to popular belief, I was not asked. Um, and honestly, though, I work like nobody's business. I am hungry and eager, and I will put in the work that other people will not.
Hmm.
And I've often described as well the biggest difference between me and other people who are in this space, who maybe like don't make it as far, and not to shame their journey at all. They're trying with whatever it is that they're capable of doing, or that they have the desire and energy for, and they'll make it exactly where they're supposed to whenever that time comes. But for me, I I do all of the things that people don't do because they think it's not worth it, or they think it's not going to happen. So there's so many interviews that I've landed, and people are like, "How did you get that? It must be because you're a paid asset." And I'm like, "I sent an email."
You just asked.
Yeah, like, it was actually quite funny. I really wanted to speak. That's something I'm really hungry for right now, because I love public speaking. I don't know, I just the energy in these rooms and stuff, like, it really fills my soul. And then also the opportunities that you get to meet so many other people that you otherwise wouldn't meet. I think that's the most special part to me.
Mm.
And just to hear people's stories, and the opportunity to be there, and to have like just the coolest conversations you would never be able to have if it wasn't for that. And I knew that that was something I really wanted to do, and that it's something I really believe in, and there was a message that people needed to hear, and I just wanted to do it. And so I literally created a 3-page PowerPoint presentation with a teal background, pictures of my dog in it, that was titled "Why I Should Speak at the Conservative Convention in 2026." Like, it was, and one of the lines in there also was, "I speak fluent Gen Z, millennial, and boomer." That was my proposal. And I remember at the time that I wrote it and I was sending it off to them, my schools of thought were either this is going to be laughed at, or this is going to be laughed at and get somebody's attention. And sure enough, it did. So
How do they respond to it?
it was like very funny.
Yeah.
Very, very funny. But very much like everybody who saw it, who then, approached me after the fact and stuff, everybody was like, amazing. It was epic. It was effing awesome. Like, we love this. So obviously that creativity, it's politics. Politics is so boring. You got to
Right.
splice it up with a little PowerPoint presentation every now and then.
Absolutely. How many other people do you think sent them a 3-page PowerPoint of their dog saying
Zero.
they can communicate with the generation that needs to be communicated
Right?
with? Right.
Zero. That's
Right.
the thing. That's people often will ask myself and other people in the space as well, like, how do you keep such a good attitude when, like, there's so much darkness and, like, everybody is so negative and mean? And I have such a great, like, work-life balance, and I absolutely prioritize being silly and professional at the same time, and being able to do both.
Well, it shines through for sure. Like, this is our first time meeting, and the amount of jokes that you've told in the first like 10 minutes, I love it. Also, like, I was talking to Cass before this, and she said to her dad, we have Jasmin Laine coming on, and he was like, well, how'd you get her to come on? That's amazing.
We
And
sent
again,
an
it was kind of like
email.
we sent an email, but I think it also speaks to you, like, it's kind of what you do, right? You're also down to earth. You understand it.
Mhm.
If you want something in life, you got to ask for it.
Yeah,
Simple as that.
I seriously, that would be my best advice for anybody who wants to do something, is you just need to do it.
So let's get back to your career then for a second, because I want to talk to you about like your transition from traditional media to, being independent now.
Mhm.
But first of all, like, what are some of the things, like the difficulties of working in traditional media? Because, when I recognize you're from the morning show,
Mhm.
and I think that starts at like 4 or 5 in the morning. Like,
Yeah.
you're not working the same hours as your everyday person.
Mhm.
Tell me about the difficulties in traditional media.
Well, that alone is very difficult.
Right.
Limited bathroom breaks, not great when you get up at 3 and you drink a lot of coffee. But yeah, I would say, like, some of the biggest, honestly, it depends. Like, there's a lot of things when it comes to your personal life, and just always having to be on every time you're in public, you're representing a brand, that can take a toll on you for sure. But additionally, even just in terms of like how things are set up, it's like the time, like, you're there for a few short hours a day. Everything is scheduled and programmed to meet a 1-hour clock, and so that's really challenging. So even if there are things that you really want to talk about, you can't, like, because we only have 2 minutes to do this, and there's 3 people talking or 2 people talking, and
Right.
and that's really challenging to actually get into the details of things. And that was something I felt like I was really lacking as well when I was in the industry. It was just the fact that I'm like, there's so much I want to talk about, or I really want to keep talking about this, but we can't, because like, time's up, and then you move on to the next thing. So there's some little things like that for sure. But I would say in general, just and just a comparative as well to where I am right now, is the freedom to just really be you, and to not be on anybody else's watch or anything like that.
Yeah.
It feels quite good. So there's a lot of little micro things about traditional media in the industry and how it works and how things operate, that I feel quite proud of how I've been able to navigate all of those on my own.
Amazing. Yeah, I think it's probably traditional media, independent, but also probably just like any job or any employment versus working for yourself,
Mhm.
right? You don't have that freedom, that autonomy most of
Mhm.
the time.
Yeah.
So when you did go independent, obviously you have this YouTube channel now, and it's unbelievable, by the way. Like, I was looking
You
at
should
it
have
last
seen
night.
where it started. Whew,
Yeah,
those
well,
were rough.
because like I feel like a year ago I looked, and I think you were like somewhere between like 30 and 50,000
Mhm.
subscribers, which, by the way, on its own is unbelievable. But now you're over 200, like a year later. That growth is crazy. I want to talk about the start though.
Mhm.
When you left radio and you started YouTube, getting into political commentary is like a pretty bold move.
Yeah.
So did you just like, was that planned, or did you just like post a video and like, I think I might have something here?
So I had started my YouTube channel about I don't know. I've given different answers on different times that I've talked about this because I honestly don't remember exactly when it was,
Right.
but I want to say it was between 4 to 6 months before I left the industry. And the reason why I had started it then was actually due to I was really not in a good place. I was battling a lot of depression. Obviously, just had a massive loss as well. Like I was not the same person. I
Mm.
just full stop. I was not the same person. I don't even know who I was back then, but it's not anything at all of who I am today. Like my heart and mind do not work the same as they did back then. But I had been given some advice by a couple of friends and family, as well as a couple of my colleagues, to try to do something because I just like I totally shut down. Like I was really not okay,
Mm.
and I wasn't really talking anymore or anything. And then when I would talk, I felt so defeated and like I just didn't have any confidence at all. And which is crazy. Like I worked in media. I'm an on-air personality. Um but I was just so different after everything that had happened. And I'd taken this advice. They said like you should try to do something where nobody knows you. And put in the effort. So film something, record something, and publish it, right? But nobody knows you. It doesn't matter. Nobody's gonna watch it. So like just do it just to try to get yourself to ease back into like having conversations again. Cause I really wasn't at that point in time.
Mm.
And so I did that. And I was like, well, I should talk about something that I really care about, I guess. And so the first thing that I had talked about at that point in time was there's something about like the website Pinterest, and they had like a new they had like new models or something that were going viral on Pinterest, and it had to do with the body positivity movement, but it didn't make any sense what they were doing, and I just thought that it was really silly and like totally missed the mark. And that was my first YouTube video ever, was talking about this whole Pinterest scandal.
Okay.
And then about a month later, I had filmed my second episode, which was about jail systems in Canada, which is something I've always been into, true crime and stuff, like most women. So I was really into a whole bunch of different things that were happening, and there was some case at the time with an MP who I now know, which is also just so crazy to think about, where there was a man who he had been transferred to a different prison, and there were some details about what that transfer entailed, and I was just so interested in it, and I couldn't stop researching it. And like the deeper you dug, and you're just so, I don't know, it was just so cool, all of the information that I was learning about how the prison system works in Canada. And so I did all of this research about this. I filmed this episode about it, published it. My videos got like, I don't know, 100 views or something. My second video, I think, was around like 1,000 views, which was huge to me.
That is huge.
And like, I didn't know how to title. I didn't know how to make thumbnails. My studio looked like garbage. Like I think I was like 40 pounds heavier than I am right now. Like I just had, it was a hot mess, but I just did it. And I really started to feel passionate about that. And then of course I've been interested in politics my whole life. Actually my late boyfriend was definitely the one who I think sparked that in me a lot too. He was very into politics, and we used to debate back and forth constantly. We used to watch House of Commons together. And so I think too, maybe even at that point in time, it was something where it just came so natural to me. Like I'm like, oh, well, of course I'll talk about politics. I love talking about politics. And,
Right.
I've been interested in it my whole life, and politics is everything. It's why people are happy or sad. It's why you're broke, why you're rich, why you get ahead, why you feel stuck, whether that be federal, provincial, or even just workplace politics. So, so that was just a really easy transition for me, for sure. And the whole purpose of my YouTube channel at the start was that I need to find something that I actually really care about and that I'm really passionate about. And voila, that
Yeah.
ended up being it. And then I think within 4 months or so of doing it, I was at like almost 10,000 subscribers already, which was crazy. And then within well before the first year, that was my full-time income, was just posting on YouTube, which is wild. I think especially when you think of the story arc of how it all came to be, because
Yeah.
like being a YouTuber, that was never, being a podcaster, like that was never a dream or goal of mine at all. It was something that I literally started it because I was really depressed and I couldn't talk to people anymore because I had completely shut down. And voila.
Mm,
So,
that's so interesting. I was gonna ask, like, why do you think it blew up so quickly? I've got a few ideas. I'm gonna throw a couple out there,
okay,
and you
mine are
let me.
probably going to be different from yours and self-deprecating.
Well, yeah, I would like. I hope they're different than mine, but not self-deprecating. But I mean, obviously, a female talking in
Mhm.
politics. I think obviously, like a good-looking female talking in politics. People want
I
to
look like
watch
the
that.
Wayans brothers from White
Um,
Chicks, okay? Relax.
but also like the thing I like about it is like you're not afraid to talk to the camera and not hurt feelings, and you don't give a shit about that,
Mhm.
and then you'll post it,
Mhm.
and it's like I think it's pretty gritty and it's bold, and I like that. But that's why I think people follow you. Obviously, the commentary and the insight is amazing as well. Let's hear what you think. Why did it blow up?
Female for sure helps. That was a void that desperately needed to be filled. And it just wasn't. There were other people for sure who had podcasts, but like nobody independent.
Yeah.
So there were other, independent news outlets. And so there'd be a female from the news outlet who did a show, but
Right.
there was nobody who was doing it in what I would call more of a traditional YouTuber fashion.
Okay.
And I was doing that, and I started doing that because I watched other people do it, and it was always dudes, but and so that came natural, and I was like, okay, whatever, and then boom. But I would say that for sure. Also, another thing, this is so dumb, but it is definitely something that I understand. I very frequently get feedback about why people like watching my content. And a lot of it has to do with how it looks, in being that everybody else who you watch, it's always like really dark in the room with like a really bright light or something. And like it all just kind of looks the same. Whereas for me, I have like teal curtains. My dog is on the couch sometimes. Like it's just really cozy and homey. And so
Mm,
I think that visually, that I don't know, like it just made people feel more comfortable when sometimes I'm talking about things that really hurt your stomach. That's one piece of feedback that I've gotten, and I'm like, that is a very good point.
yeah, that's actually
There's
an
a lot of
underrated
other
point.
people doing this, and yeah, like it just, you put it on, but there's nothing like really grabbing you, I guess, and a lot of it looks the same. Whereas for me, obviously, I'm a woman. My house looks like a woman's house,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so
It looks authentic,
yeah, so
right?
it is. It's literally my guest bedroom. So, um, so yeah, I think that was a big appeal as well. Plus, one thing that I have a bias, obviously. I admit my bias outwardly. Having said that, I'm also very curious about things. And so I'm biased in why I think perhaps a different policy would work better or whatever. But I'm very curious on the deeper hypothesis and end goal, or analyzing why I think something is happening, what I think the actual intention could be. So I think it's just a bit more of a deeper perspective, I suppose, than other channels that are doing the same thing, where like they might just, here's a news story, I'm reading the news story, wow, that's crazy, and moves on to the next news story.
Yeah.
Whereas, for me, it's like, here's a news story. Did you know that back in 1750s there was this one French philosopher who said this and this? Isn't it crazy how that is almost exactly what's happening, right? Like, so
Yeah. The thing I really like about your videos is you have a good thumbnail at the beginning, you have a good hook at the beginning, but then you take video of like what's actually happening,
mhm,
like the real current event, then it cuts back to you for your opinion. Like I think the structure of it is also
different.
it's different, but
Yeah.
it keeps people watching.
Mhm.
And I think that's the difference between somebody who watches one of your videos versus somebody who actually subscribes.
Yeah.
And that's why you have so many subscribers.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier in this conversation that very quickly you were able to basically substitute the income you made
Mhm.
in from then to YouTube. Can you just like for listeners, like most people don't understand how YouTube is monetized. Can you give us like a quick explanation of that?
Yeah, so they do like an ad sharing type program. Most social media platforms do in Canada, excluding TikTok and Instagram. but Facebook does, weirdly enough, because that's both owned by Meta. So that's kind of weird that Instagram doesn't have the same.
Right.
It's not done the same way. But so it's basically advertisements that play that have nothing to do with me, where because my video is there, or even if my video is like in the algorithm and stuff, you get an ad share of that. And then that increases or decreases depending on your views. And so obviously like every month it fluctuates, but I was able to be pretty stable just on that alone. And not to mention the fact that as I started growing, then there were a few sponsors and stuff that I had. So I do have sponsored videos. Most people on the platform do. And so like people will pay you then to be like talking about this product, and I'm very picky, so I don't have a ton of them because I'm really against just like saying yes to everything. I'm like, I actually want to have this thing you want me to talk about, and I want to try it and make sure I like it, and then I'll talk about it. Like I'm not going to be promoting something I've never used. So that is also an additional income stream, not to mention people can tip you and stuff too. So that's an additional income stream. And then at this point I'm monetized on every platform that you can possibly be monetized on just by resharing my content. So, you know, I would say the biggest amount of my income is from YouTube specifically. And then secondary would probably be Spotify, where I'm just resharing the exact same video onto Spotify. And then you have X, and then there's Facebook, and then Rumble. And
Yeah. That's like, I'm amazed at how resourceful you are, because we were just talking in the kind of in the green room before this off cam about how you're still a one person show. Like you don't have a team doing this for you.
No.
That's super impressive.
It's a lot.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's a lot. That's why I have 16-hour days, man, and I probably do that to myself. There's so many other people who I know who they have people working for them, and I just can't yet. I hate the idea of somebody else editing for me. I hate the idea of somebody else doing my research for me, or even like designing my thumbnails. I want like full creative control on absolutely everything. I just cannot give that up.
Did you learn all that stuff when you started YouTube, or were you kind of dabbling in it before radio and stuff?
There were aspects of it that being in radio, like obviously you have social media platforms. So like there's aspects of it that I was familiar with.
Right.
But I would say pretty well everything was a learn on my own, which I'm really grateful for, because like there's so many other creators who are, some of them I definitely consider close friends at this point. And so I had actually created a document a few months ago that was called, goes back to like me making a PowerPoint. This is just who I am. I had created a document a few months ago called Jasmin's Guide to Not Sucking at YouTube that I've like sent out to a whole bunch of different people with like all the different things that I learn as I go, and just little key points and stuff that I'm really obsessed with studying the algorithm, and you know, search engine optimization tools and things that you can use to get more views, to break through, because in Canada as well it's quite difficult to post political content. It gets suppressed by CBC and CTV, among like global news, CPAC, things like that. That's just how the algorithm works here, unfortunately. So it is a little bit more difficult, but you can break through it. There's tricks to it that I'm more than happy to share with everybody who's doing this that has a good heart. So
amazing.
So that's been a cool little
That's
aspect.
interesting. Cass, I think we're gonna need that guide afterwards.
I got you.
Now I want to, like, your videos get so many views, so many comments. You're not engaging with these people a lot, but how do you deal with like the hate? Because in anything you share online, especially politically, there's going to be some people that love it and a lot of people that hate it. And there's going to be people saying rude things to you, I'm sure. I haven't gone down the rabbit hole of going down the comments of any of your videos, but I don't think I need to probably guess that there's going to be hateful stuff.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Do not cast pearls to swine, my friend. Ultimately, I'm actually a very agreeable person, contrary to popular belief. And so there's been comments that people have left before that's meant to be rude. And then I've responded back by saying, I didn't even think about that. That's a really good point. Thanks. And then they'll respond to be like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. Maybe I will subscribe to you now.
Mm,
Um,
kill him with kindness.
I do that as often as I possibly can, but I also say this constantly. It's my number one go-to phrase, but to be wise as a serpent and gentle as a dove. Um, not everything needs your reaction. Not everything needs your attention. There are also all kinds of people out there who are saying the most vile things solely to get your attention. So do not feed that. And I also think as well, I'm not perfect. I absolutely have responded to people and gotten into heated thumb typing battles on my cell phone before when people are frustrating me. But I think there's a lot of things that I will take in good faith until, of course, that moment comes, whether that be an ad hominem attack or just something irrelevant or just some ridiculous like triangulation because somebody's trying to win. I don't care about somebody trying to win. This isn't about winning. We're talking about real lives here, and we're talking about real policy here.
Right.
And I'm at a place too where there's two aspects to this. Number one, that I just have no tolerance or time to waste with somebody who is committed to misunderstanding me in order so that they can feel validated or paint me into a box that they've created that I never agreed to be in order to discredit me. I very frequently say to people to like, in order in if when they disagree with you, but they can't disprove you, they have to dehumanize you in order to discredit you. And you see that all the time. And like, I don't play those games at all. Like my
Mm,
life does not serve you. I'm not here to appease you.
hmm.
So people can be really nasty, but I'm just not as bored as them, like, and like with all due respect, but like, I'm busy.
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
busy.
Yeah.
I'm not bored. I don't have the time or the desire or the energy or the care. Like I have a lot of meaning in my life that I've worked really hard to find. Um, I have been to hell and back. There's nothing anybody can take from me,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there's not a damn thing anybody can take from me, especially not with some stupid comment from a ghost profile on the internet.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a very mature way of looking at it.
yeah, like it's just, people will always find a way to dehumanize you and demean you if that's what their goal is.
Hmm.
And so when somebody says something in good faith, I'm always happy to actually chat about it, and I'm always happy to change my mind. That has happened quite a few times actually, or at the very least to listen and to just be like, I don't agree with you, but I'm really curious how you landed at point A to point B and how that makes sense, and to just pay attention to that because I think all of that is really valuable information. Even if we don't arrive at the same conclusion, it's important to understand how other people work. But I don't know. I don't know these people well enough for their opinion to affect me.
Yeah.
And I also like I wake up, I start my day in prayer every single day, and I just like my goal is aiming up always. And I'm not perfect. I make mistakes sometimes, but I own them. And I just if somebody wants to be nasty and evil, enjoy. That sucks. I genuinely feel sad for you. That doesn't sound happy to me at all. So, thank you for being a glowing example of I don't want to be like that ever. And I'm really sorry that you're like that. And if you need a friend, I'm here and I love you,
Mm,
but I'm not engaging in this.
very good answer.
I try.
Obviously like you're a speaker, you're very personable.
Yeah, I
Uh,
talk way too much.
you're
Haven't you noticed that yet?
well, you're very chatty, but like the answers are so thorough, like very authentic as well. And I'm curious because you do YouTube, so and you mentioned there's no one else working for you. You work at home.
Mhm.
Like how important to you is, human connection and in real life conversations?
I miss it a lot, to be honest. I
Yeah.
do. Especially in the winter. In the summer, it's totally different because, in the summer, like I have neighbors who I go and visit and stuff. And so that's different. But in the winter, it is challenging.
Yeah.
This is my second winter now. Um, and it's tough because I, I love people. I love being around and like having fun and living. And, nobody leaves their house in the winter. It's too freaking cold.
Yeah.
So
We're all indoor cats in the
yeah,
winter. Yeah.
like I have my friends and I, we call each other summer friends because we'll hang out all summer, like multiple days a week on weekends, and then it's like, okay, bye, see you next summer, because we just hibernate. But I do miss it a lot for sure. That's one thing that is too bad in some aspects about working from home now, is just that you really don't have that same connection that you do with, like, just casual chats and stuff like that. It is too bad. But having said that, my dog never tells me to shut up, so that's nice. And I still have like a lot of people that I'll talk with on the phone. I'm on the phone constantly, so I definitely still have good interactions with people. But wintertime is tough. It is tough. But I guess that's just more of an excuse to work harder and keep grinding.
Those
So
16-hour days.
yeah, I think honestly that's another thing too, is like I'm so committed and I'm so hungry, and so I will like, it's just the time flies by so fast, and the next thing I know I'm like, whoa, I haven't left the house in a week. My car didn't start this week. I hope it starts. I forgot to plug it in. So that does happen. But I don't know. It's not the worst thing. I just have a lot of virtual relationships with people, I guess.
I've got now you've been very open about like your conservative views, obviously, on your platform. I've got a few questions around like politics and policy I want to ask you to get your perspective on. First one. So like I've got some friends that don't even vote.
Mhm.
They feel like, oh, I'm just one person. My voice doesn't matter. My vote, it's one vote. What's it going to matter? What would you say to somebody who says something like that?
Couple schools of thought. Number one, if you're conservative and you say that, have you ever heard a liberal say that? Probably not. I would also say too, though, it's actually really sad to see the amount of people who complain about the state of things, but then also don't vote. And it's like, you live in a democracy. That's like one of your highest like moral obligations in here, is to have your voice heard, because you do matter. Of course you matter. Of course that one vote counts. Think about whether it be in by-elections or federal elections, how frequently it is that it will be somebody will lose or win by 500 or 600. Well, that's because there was 500 or 600 people who had the same thought. They could have totally changed that outcome. And I think too, it does often feel like there's very few things that actually make an impact or a difference that people can do, especially when it comes to politics. Voting is one of those. I think it's important, even if you're the only one, it's important to have your voice heard always. And it's a part of our nation, and how things have been in this country, and how we get things done, and how real change happens, or how real delay happens in some cases. So I just would always say to people, just do it. You get to take time off work, for crying out loud. Just take the free time off work and go vote. I think you get like 2 or 3 hours off technically if an election is held on a work day. And you can take that off. So go vote, go for a nice little lunch, say, wow, the voting line was so long, and then go back to work. But I do think it's really important. I think if we want to maintain a sense of freedom or have some control in our lives, voting legitimately is one of those things that helps in that sense. And even for you as well, there's a lot of people who are really not political. That's fine. I get it. Politics is overwhelming and it's a lot. But I do also think that, it's not like people are making decisions of like what color the couch should be in an office. Like, there are people who are making really big decisions. Like, are we going to get closer to China or not? Are we going to set up foreign interference provisions? Or like, there's things that are actually really important. And so you should be very aware of where different political parties stand on those issues, and which one you think would be best or worse.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Everybody should be voting. At the last election, it seemed like for a long period of time, Pierre was like gonna win. Like, there was a lot of momentum. And then it kind of seemed like overnight, like obviously it was that time Justin Trudeau resigned. Overnight, it seemed like the wind was just like taken out of Pierre's sails, and things changed drastically there. In your perspective, what happened?
That's a lot to unpack. We had the Trump factor, obviously. That's an elephant in the room for sure.
Hmm.
Um, I I would say I would say that there were a lot of really effective smear campaigns that are truly based in something that isn't real. Um, and that was not helpful for Pierre Poilievre at the time. I would also say that there were a lot of very effective advertisements that were also not really based in reality that were very effective for Mr. Carney at the time. There were certainly some things about even Mark Carney being brought in that are, and I'm saying this because it's worthy of speculation.
Hmm.
There were certainly some things that were kind of weird about that. You had Chinese foreign interference campaigns. There were 3 of them total to boost Mark Carney. The media laid it out as he was targeted. He was not targeted. He was promoted by these campaigns. That's all very easy to see in the fine print there. That is concerning. No matter
Hmm.
what, I don't care if Mark Carney was running as a conservative, that's concerning. I would have the exact same opinion there. So there was a lot of things at play there. And more than anything, I think that Canadians in some ways have been very conditioned to wanting a savior of some sort. Like it's for how many years has it been now that it's like, oh, there's all these crazy things happening, these scary things. We're going to save you. We're going to save you. That other guy's going to take away your rights. And it's like, what?
Right.
So there's been a lot of stuff going on for a very long time that's been really silly. I think the Trump derangement syndrome in Canada is like one of the greatest threats to our democracy at this point. I feel so convinced of that. And it's like, you cannot like Donald Trump. That's okay. He's not your president. Like,
Hmm.
that's fine. And I also think this to me was really evident. I've done a few videos on this because the budget 2025 that came out, that they have a book that's printed. You can also access it online. I'm a really big sucker for actually having a book and reading it and being able to highlight and take notes and put little stickies in the page and stuff. And it was really gobsmacking to me the fact that in the first 6 pages of Mark Carney's Budget 2025 book, he wrote, Canada has the best deal with America, and 85% of our trade is tariff free. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, I know that to be true because I cover politics every day. You didn't run on that, though. You made it sound in your election like we were totally screwed and the banker from England was the only guy to help us.
Hmm.
That is just it's an omission. It's a white lie, and it won you the election. And for you to boast about it now as though you did something, that's always been the case. We've always had 85% tariff free. I think now it's closer to 75 with some of the new things that have gone on. But
There was also that rumors about like whether he was invited on the Joe Rogan podcast,
yeah.
and he didn't do that.
Mhm.
And I remember listening to Joe Rogan say like, I don't know why he wouldn't, because I'm actually a fan of him. I
Mhm.
hate the Liberals. I hate Trudeau. So I was going to, pump his tires. I thought it was wrong of his team to not let him do that.
Mhm.
What do you think of that strategy? Like, do you think he should have went on that podcast?
Um, I want to first point out a hypocrisy, which is that I just think it's kind of rich for the same people who are always accusing Pierre Poilievre and conservatives of being maple megas, and just being, they're so close to Trump. It's really interesting to me that that same party is the only party that has consistently gone on American networks, or even invited American speakers to things that they're doing. Like that is just, it's just like, wow, that is so hypocritical. Like you guys are,
Mm.
you're so anti-America when anybody else doesn't do it, but we claim or accuse them of doing it, but then we do it and it's fine. And so I just think that that is so silly to me. Like even Mark Carney as an example, when his first, like how, this is weird. This is just objectively weird that Mark Carney's first and only time appearing on the Jon Stewart show was when he teased that he was going to be the Prime Minister of Canada in a really subtle way, or that he was going to be running for Prime Minister in a really subtle way. How weird is that?
Yeah.
That you run this entire anti-America platform, you go on what is it, the Daily Show that's the Daily Show if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Now I feel like I'm wrong, but whatever. He's on with Jon Stewart. And that's the first time Mark Carney has ever been on a show like that. The first time in his entire career is to do that and to tease that he might be joining politics to an American show that doesn't have a very large Canadian audience. Like, and then you have even like Chrystia Freeland on Bill Maher. She's been on there multiple times. Doug Ford is on US news all the time. And it's just really weird to me. Like, I'm like, we hate America, but we do love their large audience reach.
Right.
Like, what?
So are you kind of alluding to, like, you think Pierre maybe didn't go on the podcast because he didn't want to be more tied to this, like, mega Trump thing?
I am of the belief that him going on Joe Rogan at that point in time, I don't think it would have caused so much harm that it would have made him tank in the polls. I also don't think that it would have been so amazing that it would have helped him in the polls either. Like, people who are listening to Joe Rogan are most likely not people who are voting for Mark Carney, you know? I could be wrong, obviously, but I just, at the time frame, I think it probably could have done more harm than good, but at the very least, the benefit of it wouldn't have won him the election. I don't believe that at all. I know that a lot of people think that. I don't know. I'm not at that same point. You know, it's a podcast. It's a wonderful way to get your message across, but it's not like it's a big Canadian audience. There is definitely a large Canadian audience, but it's not like that's the goal. I think that it's always important to talk to as many people as you possibly can. I think that the biggest strategic disaster in that case, for lack of better words, would just be the fact that instead of playing a really good offense, the Conservatives found themselves playing defense against these ridiculous slurs that could not be farther from the truth, that were just really completely irrelevant. In order to win an election. I think for me, that would have been like the biggest flaw, was you played too much defense, and that was stupid. You shouldn't, we don't care what anybody says about you or whatever. Just do what you want to do what you believe in, do what you think is best for the Canadian people, what's going to help the Canadian people always. Whatever the media wants to say, you're never going to win by them anyway. Like, there's so many people that you will never ever do right by them. Why are you stopping things or avoiding things for a group of people who will always find something to complain about with you? But then I do think strategically, of course, nobody pays attention to this one, but I did think that it was, I thought that it looked better, certainly, for a Conservative leader to be the one person who was on 0 American networks during that period of time. He was touring Canada during that period of time, compared to, you know, the Liberal and even the NDP, who were, like, all of them were on American networks doing things. And I thought that was really eye-opening for anybody who wanted to pay attention. You know, the one guy who you're constantly smearing as being something that is just demonstrably false. It's like laughably false. Is the only guy that's actually been here the whole time.
Right. And to be honest with you, like, as somebody who's not as tied into politics myself, I never saw it from that perspective at the time. You know, so I was kind of always on the fence of, like, why wouldn't he go on that podcast? Because there's a lot of people, I feel like, that do listen to that podcast, and I feel like sometimes those podcasts do a good job of humanizing somebody.
Of course.
Right? They make them a little bit more vulnerable, and then people start to understand them a little bit better.
Yeah.
You know, when you can really get to somebody as a human as opposed to just a politician, they're much more likely to like you. And if they like you, what are they going to do? Vote for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Having said that, though, I mean, if you want to, I don't disagree with you, by the way. I do agree with you. I think at this point in time, he should absolutely do stuff like that. Like, who cares? Just do it. Who cares?
What does he have to lose now?
Like, just do it. I think at the time, though, I think there was a lot of people on the base, and fair enough. But, you know, if you think that appearing on the Joe Rogan podcast is going to win or lose an election, I just think that's...
No, I didn't think it would win or lose. I just thought, like, it might help. There's people who do, though. It might help him, but it's certainly not going to distinguish a win or a loss.
Man, there were so many... Well, he just lost the election now because he didn't appear on Joe Rogan. Like, I like Joe Rogan. Don't get me wrong. I've listened to his podcast every once in a while, and I usually pick good episodes. So, like, you know, there's nothing wrong there. I think it would have been a cool opportunity for him, for sure. And, you know, perhaps there could have been some side effects to that too that could have helped him amidst all of the Trump situation. I do think that could have been beneficial also, but again, it's all like a hypothesis. You don't actually know.
Yeah. Well, I like what your point though about they were playing a lot of defense. Yeah. And that's probably what that was. It was a defensive move.
I've said that to Pierre before. I remember after the election, I had a conversation with him privately, and he had asked me, he's like, well, what are you hearing? And I had said, I'm like, honestly, man, you got to stop playing defense. I'm tired of the defense. Well, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, stop defending yourself against the attacks. Let them talk. Who cares? Who cares? If you believe in yourself and you believe that what you're doing, you have a higher aim than just some ego or pride here. If there's a real reason why you're doing all of this, and that's true, just do. Because people will always complain about you. There's always going to be something to complain about.
Yeah.
I wanted to make a point though as well when it comes to the podcast aspect. You know, Mark Carney didn't go on any of those podcasts. So
True.
So what do you think the difference is there?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it was at a point when people were really confused about Pierre, though. They were really confused about, is he tied to Trump? Is he not? And I knew from listening to Rogan that he was a big Pierre fan. So I thought it would have been beneficial for him to go on because he would have said good things about him. He would have inquisitively asked him insightful questions that would have probably made it advantageous for him to answer.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't think it would have won him the election necessarily, but I think he would have got more out of it than he would have lost.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do agree with you for sure. I think the one thing, and this just came to me, that I'm thinking of in regards to that is there are a lot of things about Canada that are not good. And the government and the media likes to tell you it's the best it's ever been. But it's not, you know, and there's a lot of data to suggest that. There's a lot of people who are fine. There's a lot of people who are just getting by. And there's a lot of people who are really suffering. And that's not because of anything other than policy.
For sure.
Like it isn't. It's all policy that has led to these results. That's obvious by data sets when it comes to our GDP, our productivity, our labor force and shortages, and just our immigration numbers and all these things. Like there's been a lot of charts that have gone in different directions than they once were. And well, if you go to that chart and when did it start going down or when did it start going up, what happened then? And you can link it back to different federal decisions and provincial decisions. And so I fear perhaps that at that moment in time, and this still happens, I just saw an attack ad from the Liberal government about this very topic, about how Canada's broken, which is also hilarious because back in 2013, Justin Trudeau posted a video. It's online. I've put it in my videos before. It's literally on YouTube of Justin Trudeau right before he decided to run in politics, where he's walking around Parliament Hill, downtown Ottawa, talking about this place is broken. Which just makes me laugh so much harder when people will be like, conservatives think it's broken. I'm like, Trudeau said that in 2013. What the heck? But so I worry sometimes that would be the narrative. And I'm not saying, you know, again, people are going to create a narrative no matter what. They're going to paint you into a box no matter what. So it doesn't matter. But looking at it from a strategy point, like the attack ads around the election were constant. It's broken. It's broken. It's broken. It's broken. That was like it. It was just, ugh.
Yeah. They're making people fearful.
Of course. Yeah. A dangerous divided world. Okay. But so I would fear perhaps that being on some of those podcasts when you actually are doing a long form discussing what's going on in Canada, I fear that could be used more so as it's broken, it's broken. I mean, for crying out loud, they're still talking about the Jordan Peterson interview,
Right.
Which I thought was an excellent interview that certainly showed a deeper reflection of who Pierre was on a more intellectual level. The difference there, I think, is that Joe Rogan would have been perhaps a little bit more like friendly and funny, because that's something a lot of people don't know about Pierre, but he's really funny. And like he has a great sense of humor, and like I don't know, I just really encourage people to meet him more than anything, because when you meet him and you see the way like he sees you when he looks at you, and he talks to you, not like at you or through you. I recall a time when I met Justin Trudeau, and I just remember the entire time we were chatting, and I was conservative, but not like hyper partisan like I am now. And I remember just chatting with him, and I thought it was an honor to meet the Prime Minister. I thought it was the coolest thing ever at the time. Like, I didn't vote for you, but this is a cool opportunity. Of course it is.
Right.
And I just remember he just looked right through me, and
Mm.
like the only thing that came through my mind the entire time we had our brief chat was like he was just so desperate to get the heck out of there.
Mm.
And I've never had that experience with Mr. Polyev, even in moments when he is actually really desperate to get out of there. Like he'll still always take a moment, and he did that for thousands and thousands of Canadians every night at various halls throughout the election campaign, and so it's no wonder why the smears and all that are nonstop.
Yeah, it's so
Because
true. I do know that about his character because they did like this private little event when he was here doing an interview at 17 Wing, and I went to it, and Cass introduced me to him actually, and I was expecting it to just be like a handshake and move on, right? Like he's busy, but it was a handshake, and then he was asking us questions. Like he was very interested in our lives and what we thought, and I thought that was really interesting. Like it just shows like he is genuinely out there for the betterment of the country. Like he wants to know what people think. He wants to improve things,
yeah,
right? And
and he's
he was
receptive.
curious.
He's
Yeah,
very
and
receptive
very
too.
approachable. One of the things that was like very popular during the election between conservatives and liberals was the whole debate of defunding the CBC because of especially during COVID, like there were so many businesses that struggled or went under that obviously never got a bailout from the government.
Yeah.
But CBC gets this bailout year over year over year. I'm curious to know kind of like where you line up on this and what your thoughts are on it.
I agree with it fully. I also take the conservative stance when it comes to perhaps some very. This is one thing that's interesting though. Now that I think of it, because they'll always say, well, they really need CBC. They rely on it in rural communities. No, they don't. I grew up in rural communities. We got Starlink as soon as we could, and that delivers. So it's like we have internet out there. Like, what do you mean we need CBC? I guess CBC radio, sure. Nobody wants to defund radio stations per se. And also CBC radio gets like next to nothing compared to the actual like news programming.
Right, right.
But I agree with it in terms of, yeah, sure, if there's some rural communities where they need money, okay, sure. French radio, yep, okay, got it, fair enough. But ultimately, it should exist in the same way that other media subsidies do, because there's a lot of media subsidies and grants that companies can apply for and get. So, okay, fair enough. Why does the CBC get over $1 billion a year, though? Like, that's pretty crazy.
That's a lot of money.
I think it's 1.4 or close to 1.5 now. And it is really absurd. And, it's been quite interesting hearing Mark Miller, Justin Trudeau's best man at his wedding, BFF since college, because he's our minister of, I forget what the actual title is, but it's like Canadian Identity, Heritage, something like that. I can't recall the actual title at the moment. But he's been doing things about how CBC is a fourth pillar of democracy. And I'm like, what? How? That's crazy. I believe competition is wonderful for everybody. Competition gives you better products, better value for your products, more affordable things. And it also provides opportunity, which I think is really important. And it's media, bro. If I'm able to sustain my lifestyle on YouTube, pretty sure CBC is going to be just fine. Like, it's so crazy to me, the amount of money that they get. I also think it's such a huge conflict of interest. I understand, it's a state broadcaster, so of course we pay for them. Don't you dare tell me that it is ethical for you to promise an extra, 175 million or something, or 150 million, I forget, during the election campaign. That was one of Mark Carney's election promises, was to increase funding on the CBC while CBC is covering the election. That's not ethical at all. That is such a conflict of interest right there.
Yeah.
And also, too, like, even that is so weird. Like, in what world is an election promise that you're going to give the CBC, who already makes over $1 billion a year, more money? How does that improve my life?
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, everybody has Netflix. Everybody's on other platforms. That's not to say that, CBC is not 100% terrible content. But my word, for the amount, could you imagine what I could do with that kind of money?
Yeah.
Like, it's just so crazy to me.
You could hire a second employee with that kind of money.
I know. I still probably wouldn't, though.
A lot happened in the States in the last year as well. Like, obviously, there was the assassination attempts on Trump,
Mhm.
then the tragic killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk in September. All that kind of sparked a global discussion around like political violence, polarization. Do you think this Trump era politics intensified like division within Canadian politics?
Yes, but not because of Donald Trump.
No.
No, I don't think it's because of Donald Trump at all. I think that's a scapegoat. I think Donald Trump is an easy excuse to use when you're trying to manufacture vulnerability. You can point people to one thing and distract. And again, you don't have to like Donald Trump. Good thing you don't live there. Good thing you didn't vote for him. Like, it's irrelevant to me. Think about what about other world leaders? Think of Xi Jinping. Think of, Kim Jong, whatever the heck.
Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, him. Thank you. I was going to say his dad's name, and I'm like, nope, he died. Think of all those people. Those are like really terrible leaders. Think about, think about Iran. Think about who's running Iran. There's so many countries you could point to. The fact that the Taliban has been the government of Afghanistan since 2021. Those are all really crazy bad people who are literally doing horrendous things that are despicable, yet somehow we still give them foreign aid payments. What? Yeah, sure, let's go ahead and continue to fund $200-something thousand a year to Afghanistan for women's studies, even though we pulled our consulate, we don't have an embassy there, and women have no rights there. Actually, as far back as this summer, women aren't even allowed to see out of both eyes anymore. But okay, yeah, sure, we're funding women and gender equality in Afghanistan. Sure we are. That's a conspiracy theory, technically, because I can't prove where the money goes because the money falls off trail. But it's just like there's so many things like that where it's like if there was any real reason to be incredibly divided as a nation due to a politician, I don't care how much you dislike Donald Trump, we have no problem with all of these other nations politically, domestically, do we? Why is that? How on earth is it that we have more problems with Donald Trump, who lives in, technically it's like a democratic republic, but like who's there? Meanwhile, we're like cozying up to China, who took the lives of 4 Canadian citizens last year. Who just imprisoned a journalist who's been a journalist working for a pro-democracy organization for over 20 years. How is that not dividing us politically when we're cozying up to them, we're giving them more money, but Donald Trump is? Why? Because he has some tariffs that are sectoral that probably could have been worked out if we didn't try to politicize it so much at this point. And I know that there's nuance there. I know that there's details there, but just in the grand picture of things, do I think that any of this is Donald Trump's fault? No, of course not, because that's silly, and we've already had divisions in this country for quite some time. I think that right now the easy thing is just to point to Donald Trump because it's a simple blanket statement answer that it's his fault. Because if it's his fault, I don't have to think about any of this other stuff.
Yeah, you don't have to be accountable, but the mistakes are happening in our own backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think too, even in terms of Donald Trump and I know that they were recently struck down with 6 Republicans, if I'm not mistaken, who voted against them as well. But we'll see how that goes. I mean, realistically, Trump will veto that anyway, so it's not like they're going anywhere anytime soon. But I think this is just a really deep frustration of mine too. And you can feel offended, you cannot like him. That's okay. I get it. He is funny sometimes, though, but I get it. But at the end of the day, when Donald Trump put his tariffs on, regardless of how legitimate they actually are, let's just think about the signal here. So he puts on these tariffs and he says that it's due to the border. He wants to stop fentanyl trafficking, which Canada is indeed a major source for. The precursors come in from China. They come into Vancouver. The Mexican, what is El Chapo's son's gang called? Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Some cartel.
Sinaloa cartel. They have been operating in rural Alberta, rural British Columbia for quite some time. There's been dozens of busts there. Fentanyl is made with precursors from China. And people will say, oh, well, we only put in 1%. Well, did you know that of the 1% caught, it was enough to lethally dose approximately 9 to 11 million Americans? Canada has a population of 44 million, something like that. I think it's more than that now. But could you imagine if let's just say that everybody there was lethally taken out from that amount of fentanyl? That's a serious problem. It may be 1% or less than 1%. that's of what we're catching because we check about 1% of our shipping containers. Oh, well, it's the USA's responsibility to check those. Why though? What? Like, it's the USA's responsibility to check containers that are in Canada, in Canadian shipping ports that are Canada should be checking before it goes into the USA. So you mean to tell me that you're totally fine with all of that just sitting here and not being checked at all? Like there's so many holes that you can kind of
Right.
put in that. And it's just really frustrating to me because in general, there was actually, this took place, I think this was on Victoria Island last summer. There was over somewhere around 75,000 blue flags that were put in the ground as a visual. It was really heartbreaking. And every flag represented the amount of men who had died from an overdose over the last like 2 or 3 years or something.
Hmm.
And to see all those flags in the ground was just devastating. And I just think it's really ignorant. And it's also kind of missing the point because Canada does have a really big problem with that too.
Mm-hmm.
And we should, like, that should have been a good enough signal for us to say, yeah, it's a problem. It might be a worse problem in the US. They might very well be getting more in from Mexico than they are from us. We do have a problem, though, and we should fix that for our own people. And, I just also think when it comes to the border as well, because that was a really big concern of theirs, not just in trafficking terms, but people will always say, like, oh, well, there's been so many firearm assaults and things like that, and they're from illegally trafficked firearms from the US to Canada. That's so bad. And I'm like, yeah, we should probably have border security, right? That has the ability, the power, the manpower, the funding that they desperately need, the upgrades to check things better, right? So it's like you can't be upset about illegal firearms from the US coming into Canada because it's not getting checked because we don't have the manpower to do that, and then also think it's totally fine for any of that same stuff that's going the other way. Like, we share a border, and it's like all
Mm-hmm.
of these things, even if the tariffs, you view them as being something that's totally not justified, illegal, whatever word you want to use, fair enough. There was a really big signal sent, though, that was actually really important, not for America, for us. And instead of focusing on how important that was for all of the mothers and the siblings and the dads and the children who are losing their family members due to this exact same epidemic, this crisis that nobody wants to talk about out loud, that the Canadian government wants to keep funding for, and, having all these safe sites safe
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. There was a really big problem. And I think more than anything when it comes to the Trump situation, I'm so tired of people yelling about him instead of thinking for even a split second, yeah, it'd be really nice if we didn't have that as a problem anymore. Hey, it'd be really cool if we did something about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just for a second, because it is a really big problem here, and we should fix that, not for Trump, but because we need to fix it for us and for our communities.
Mm-hmm.
That was really long.
It should have been fixed before Trump even brought it to our attention, right?
Without a doubt.
Absolutely. Okay, so a lot of people these days are like, they're worried about the rising costs and everything. Food at the grocery store, taxes, housing skyrocketing in price and value, immigration numbers obviously rising. People feel like the harder they work, they still can't get ahead. It's just impossible. What do you think needs to fundamentally change in Canada?
First step, lower taxes to increase competitiveness for sure. So the what is it? Now I'm forgetting it. The Gordie Howe Bridge.
Yeah, the
Why do I
Gordie Howe
keep
Bridge.
forgetting that? I don't know why I keep
Well, there's
forgetting
there's the Ambassador Bridge there. Now they built the Gordie Howe
right.
Bridge.
So the Gordie Howe Bridge, here's a really good example of just how different things operate in Canada compared to the United States, which, if let's just compare them, they're our neighbor. In theory, we should have the same types of opportunities. Of course, our climates are a little different, but, we have pretty much the exact same access to ocean and ports and whatever as they do. Yet we are lagging behind so much. Like, the U.S. has had positive GDP growth and Canada's had negative GDP growth. That's really weird. What's happening? What are the signals? And so, Gordie Howe Bridge is an example. I thought this was really telling, and it's just this really tiny little detail, but it says, Mark Carney said in his press conference after Donald Trump's comments about it, and he said, the bridge, Canada paid for it, but, it's owned by the Canadian government and the state of Michigan, And I just sat there and I was like, huh, that's crazy, isn't it? That the state of Michigan owns this bridge for themselves. The Canadian government, though, owns that bridge. And I know that it's this small little detail, but in Canada, things are so top down. And it is actually kind of weird when you think about other nations as well and how they operate, that the federal government has its paws in so many things that would normally be provincial jurisdiction. Or even just like different communities,
Hmm.
as well as the private sector. And that seems so weird to me that it's just become such a normal, common thing that the Canadian government is who owns so many major things in this nation. And then when you think about the fact that that same Canadian government, so here's another example too, even we have the Bill C-5, which granted the Prime Minister and cabinet the ability to choose projects that would get fast approval that were already on the list and are already being built in almost every case, for national infrastructure projects. These things that are really going to grow our economy. And it's funny because they opened up this new bureaucracy to speed things up, cut through red tape. But there's been 12 projects added to that. Every single one of them is pretty much good to go. They've all been approved for a long time, over a decade, some of them. They're added to this list. It's this big showy announcement. But the thing that nobody focuses on is that, there's another 500 projects that are just waiting to make it on that list. That's crazy. That's ridiculous. No wonder why our GDP is dropping. No wonder why our productivity is dropping. No wonder why our wages have not maintained inflation in the slightest. Like, no wonder.
Mm.
Because you have every single thing that gets done, unless you're opening a small business inside of a mall, you have to wait for the federal government to approve it. Like, that's when you think about the amount of land that we have, how diverse we are coast to coast. That's really weird. Like, it's not productive at
Hmm.
all.
Hmm.
And it is really odd to me that the private sector has been completely shut out so that the government can come in. And, another example of that too would be Build Canada Homes. We're going to rapidly increase home building at speeds we haven't seen since the fall of the Berlin Wall. What? Um, which also, by the way, we need 500,000 and they built 9. Awesome. But even that, it's like, okay, wait a second. So you mean to tell me that now the federal government is starting to push out the private sector in home building? What?
Mm.
And so obviously it's not pitched like that. And obviously that takes time to really see the ripple effects of. But in no world do our problems get fixed by the federal government getting involved. That's
Hmm.
psychotic.
Hmm.
So that they can build homes on crown land that you don't own, that you lease, that you rent. That's ridiculous.
Hmm.
Like, it's so sad to see the way that the private sector has been shut out in this country. And so bottom line, it would be taxes and regulations. There's no reason that we need to have as many as we do. Clearly, it's not helping anything. And if you're willing to bypass all of them with Bill C-5, they obviously don't matter that much. So what are we doing here? What are we doing to ourselves? It's all control. That's it. It's just control. And it's just really silly. But that's also how, neoliberal, technocratic, liberal governments operate. So there's nothing about it that's shocking if you understand how those work. But it's just ridiculous. Like, this isn't good. This isn't a solution.
Hmm.
So we need some serious changes, and taxes is the number one way. But how does the government have money to pay back its deficit if you don't have high taxes?
Hmm.
Like, we're in such a mess. We really are.
Well, surely the taxes can't get any higher, can they?
Yeah. Never know.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, last question I have for you, Jasmin. If we could take 17-year-old Jasmin, the Jasmin that got really interested in media, and fast forward and have her look at you today, left traditional media, independent on your own, generating your own income, doing what you're passionate about, obviously shining, love what you do, over 200,000 subscribers. The list goes on and on and on here. How proud do you think she'd be of you?
She'd probably call me an idiot and say I'm lying. You're an idiot and a liar. That would be it for sure. Be like, Ashton Kutcher, where are you? Is this punked? I dated myself there. That's a great show. Gosh, I don't know. I think that everything, all of this has just been such a blessing. It's been such a whirlwind. It's been the most insane thing. And it's happened so fast yet so slow in some cases. Um, but I imagine younger me would probably just be like very much in awe, in total disbelief, and would maybe start being a little bit more confident because everything was going to turn out to be just fine, even though she didn't believe that it would be. But lo and behold, you had some faith, and you kept pressing on when everybody made you feel like you were going to fail, and you just kept going because that was the only. It was either you keep going or you give up, and give up was not an option. So you keep going, and then you have this,
Mm,
and this is a pretty happy and beautiful place to be with all of the ebbs and flows and ups and downs.
amazing. I totally agree. And I think there's most women out there in the world that see the career that you've developed for yourself and the situation you have, and they'd trade places with you in a second.
Well, if they have a cute dog, I might be willing to trade places with them too. So,
Amazing. Listen, thanks for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. It's been awesome.
thank you so much. And
Thanks.
sorry for talking forever.
It's been awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.